Hi, this is Mrs. Show, and today our objective is to be able to solve problems with squares and square roots. Today we're going to use our multiplication table to help us find the answers to squares and square roots. If I look at my table, the highlighted numbers are perfect square numbers. So 1 times 1 is 1, 2 times 2 is 4, 3 times 3 is 9, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 times 5 is 25. These are the numbers we're going to look at today to help us. When we evaluate, it means to multiply it out. If we have 7 to the second power, that means take 7 times 7. So 7 times 7 is 49. The exponent 2 tells us how many 7s to multiply. The base 7 tells us what number to multiply by itself. So evaluate means to multiply it out and find the answer. The answer is 49. When we square a number, what we are doing is multiplying it by itself. If I look at the square here, it is 4 units long by 4 units long. The area of the square would be 16. The way I find the area is to take 4 times 4 to get 16. 4 squared is the same as 4 to the second power. 5 squared would be 5 to the second power, which means 5 times 5, 25. 3 squared would be 3 times 3, 9. So when we square a number, we take that number times itself. So 1 squared would be 1 times 1, 1. 2 squared would be 2 times 2, 4. 3 squared would be 3 times 3, 9. 4 squared is 4 times 4, 16. 5 squared is 5 times 5, 25. 6 squared would be 6 times 6, 36. 7 squared is 49. 8 squared, 64. 9 squared would be 9 times 9, 81. 10 squared would be 10 times 10, which is 100. 11 squared, we're taking 11 times 11 to get 121. 12 squared is 144. 13 squared would be 13 times 13, 169. 14 squared would be 14 times 14, 196. And 15 squared is 225. Evaluate, we're going to work it out, multiply it out to find the answer. You may use your multiplication sheet to help you. Number 1 is 4 squared. 4 squared would be 4 times 4, which is 16. Try number 2. 15 squared would be 15 times 15, 225. Try number 3. You may use your multiplication table. 12 squared would be 12 times 12, 144. Number 4 says 3 squared. This word squared means 3 to the second. Find 3 to the second. That would be 3 times 3, 9. Try number 5. That is 1. 1 times 1, 1. Try number 6. 13 squared would be 13 times 13, 169. Try number 7. 5 squared is 5 to the second, which means 5 times 5, the answer is 25. Try number 8. 7 squared would be 7 times 7, which is 49. The opposite of squaring a number is taking the square root. The square root symbol looks like this. So when we do number 1 here, the square root of 64 means what number times itself gives you 64? Well, if I look at my table, 8 times 8 is 64, so that would be 8. Number 2, square root of 169, what number times itself gives you 169? That would be 13. Number 3, the square root of 225. If I look at my table, I'm looking for my perfect square numbers. I'm looking for 225. The number times itself to give me 225 is 15. Number 4, the square root of 1. What number times itself gives me 1? That would be 1. You try number 5. Find the square root of 81. That would be 9. 9 times 9 is 81. Try number 6. What number times itself gives me 25? That would be 5. My answer is just 5. Number 7, try. Square root of 144. What number times itself gives you 144? That would be 12. So my answer is just 12. Putting it all together. So if you look at the following problems, some of them are squares and some are square roots. The first one is 1 squared. That means 1 times 1, which is 1. But the second one, that's the square root symbol. That means what number times itself gives you 64? The square root of 64 would be 8. 4 squared, this is 4 to the second, means 4 times 4, which is 16. Square root of 100 means what number times itself gives you 100? That would just be a 10. Next one is square root of 25. What number times itself gives you 25? That would be 5. The next problem is 6 to the second, or 6 squared. This is what we call squared. When we square it, it means 6 times 6, which is 36. The last one is the square root of 81. The square root means what number times itself gives me 81. If I look at my table, 9 times 9 is 81. So my answer is just a 9. Since squares and square roots are opposite each other, they undo each other. So the square root of 4 squared is just going to give me the answer 4. I could work it out by taking 4 to the second. 4 to the second would be 4 times 4, 16. But then when I take the square root of 16, I just get 4. They undo each other. So the next problem is the square root of 6 squared. That answer should be 6. I could work it out and take 6 to the second and get 36. But then the square root of 36 just means what number times itself gives me 36. I'm just going to get 6 again. So there is no need to work these out. They undo each other. The square root of 10 squared would be 10. The square root of 12 squared would be 12. The square root of 15 squared is 15. The square root of 7 squared is 7. The square root of 11 squared is 11. Square root of 13 squared would be 13. Square root of 4 squared would be 4. Good. And the last one, the square root of 14 squared would be 14. That ends our lesson today. Now it is time for you to take your quiz.